Hi, this is Lee Enox, and this is the Lee Enox Show. I got some great guests this evening. Dr. Walter Block, Libertarian Sensei. He's been my Libertarian Sensei for many years now. Love this guy to death. We disagree adamantly about an issue that we're going to discuss tonight, evictionism and the pro-life movement. I'm going to let him address his issues. And I got my good friend, Wade Burleson, former pastor, longtime pastor in Need, Oklahoma, a mighty warrior in the Southern Baptist Convention. He's done mighty things. I have said many times, he doesn't like me to say this, but I believe this as a guy that's getting a PhD in history. I don't say this lightly, that when the history of the Southern Baptist Convention is written on the 21st century, your name should be right there, Wade, because you did mighty things to bring a lot of issues to attention to the entire convention. And we won't talk about that tonight, but I love both you guys dearly. You've been longtime friends. Tonight we're talking about a big issue. But before we get into that, I just wanted to address a couple of housekeeping issues. Recently, somebody said, "What happened to you, Lee? You're a secular conservative now? You don't talk about Jesus Christ? You got these atheist libertarian guys on there and you don't talk about Jesus Christ?" I don't think a show has went by. And you guys, this is the 120th episode of my show. I've been doing it for 5 years. I think every show I've ever had with Walter Block, I've tried to slip in my Christianity somewhere in there. And I think you guys can testify to that. But let me just say this, for the record, to those who watch this show, I am a Christian. I believe in Jesus Christ. He died, was buried, rose again from the dead. I am a historic Christian. I believe in the creeds of a historic Christian faith. I am pro-life. I reject adamantly what Walter Block is going to say tonight, but this is what I disagree with my friends. Many friends on the right these days, they live in an echo chamber where they don't allow dissenting views. I fundamentally believe in the First Amendment. Free speech has been a pillar of American democracy for now 250 years. I believe in the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and this is a free speech zone. I adamantly reject the culture, the cancel culture that would try to silence and censor Walter Block or Wade Burleson or Lee Enox or anybody in this country. I strongly affirm pro-life views with all my heart. Why would I have Walter Block on then? Because this is not an echo chamber. Like William F. Buckley in the past, who did things brilliantly, he would allow people of dissenting views on his show. He had Ron Paul, when Ron Paul ran for president in 1988, he disagreed with him because he's a big Reaganite, right? But he had Ron Paul on his show in 1988. In a similar vein, I have Walter Block. And so just for the record, for those people that may watch this, I am pro-life. Once again, I believe that life begins at conception. I strongly support the abolition of Roe versus Wade and abolition of abortion in America. Tonight, though, it's going to be a little different in that Wade Burleson will take opposing view lightly with our good friend Walter Block. I just want to moderate this, but for the record, I needed to say those things. I love you guys dearly. And in the spirit of the First Amendment and freedom of speech, here we go. What do you say, Walter Block? Talk to us about evictionism. What is your view?
Okay, I'm delighted to be with you. By the way, I'm also a pro-Trump person. I'm a libertarian, and what I wrote on this was during the election, I said, if you live in California, don't vote for Donald. Vote for the Libertarian, because Donald doesn't need your vote. He's going to get slaughtered in California. On the other hand, if you live in Texas or Florida, don't vote for Donald. He doesn't need your vote. He's going to win big, and your vote will be wasted. Vote for the Libertarian. However, if you live in Pennsylvania or in any of these purple states where it's going to be close, vote for Donald, not the Libertarian, even though I'm a Libertarian, because he's magnificent compared to Kamala Harris, much closer to us. So I'm sort of a Libertarian, but I support Donald. And I certainly support Donald, what he's doing in Israel. Okay, back to the subject. I had my commercial break. I favor evictionism. There are really three views on the abortion issue: pro-life, pro-choice, and evictionism. Everybody's heard of pro-life. Everybody's heard of abortion or pro-life, pro-choice. Nobody's heard of evictionism. So I'm happy to articulate that, and I welcome criticism from Wade or Lee. And I certainly support you, Lee, when you say that you invite people with different opinions. It's very important. I mean, how else are we going to learn and grow? I mean, if you only invited people who agreed with you 100%, oh, that would be okay. But it's better to have a little mixture in there. And I think it's more interesting as well. Okay, so what is evictionism? It's neither pro-life nor pro-choice. In my view, human life starts with a fertilized egg. The only other choice is it starts with birth. I mean, those are the only two choices. Well, birth is just a change of address from inside a woman's body to outside a woman's body. It's a movement of 1 foot away. The baby is the same baby 1 minute before birth and 1 minute after birth as you and I, as are the three of us, 1 minute ago and 1 minute from now. It's the same thing. So the idea that life starts with birth is just preposterous. It starts with the fertilized egg. I mean, a fertilized egg doesn't look like us, but, it'll get there. I shouldn't say it'll get there. He will get there. It's a person. I keep making the mistake of calling the fetus an it. It's not an it. It's a person, either a boy or a girl person. Okay. Eviction is a principled compromise between the two. What do I mean by a principled compromise? Well, I say 2 plus 2 is 5, and you say 2 plus 2 is 7. A compromise is 2 plus 2 is 6. It's a compromise, but it's not a principled compromise because you can't deduce 2 plus 2 equals 6 from anything except that you're trying to compromise 5 and 7. I think eviction is a principled compromise because it's compatible with libertarianism. What is libertarianism? Libertarianism says that we each own our bodies. We're the self-owners. I think you can sell yourself. That's a different issue. But right now, we each own our own bodies, and certainly every woman owns her body. Now consider the case of rape. A 12-year-old girl is walking down the street. She gets grabbed. She gets raped. Now she's impregnated. And what is the status of the fetus? The status of the fetus is a trespasser. She owns her body, and there's a person inside of her. Well, you can't get more of a trespass than that. I mean, it's one thing if they trespass in your car or in your house, but the baby is trespassing in her very stomach. And the problem that I have with the pro-life people is that they would condemn her for 9 months of punishment. She doesn't want to be pregnant. And they would say, well, sorry, girlie. I'm putting words in their mouth. I'm not deprecating it, but the idea is, sorry, you got to go 9 months and then you can adopt the baby or whatever. That's a different issue. I say she's already been punished once, innocent girl, by getting raped. And now she's going to be punished again? No. Now, look, when a trespasser comes into your house, you don't have a right to kill the trespasser. If the trespasser is innocent, even if the trespasser is guilty, the first step is not to kill. You don't kill a trespasser. I mean, somebody steps on your front lawn, you don't take out a bazooka and shoot him. You say, hey, did you notice this is my lawn? Please move away or something. And then if the guy attacks you, okay, self-defense. But the first idea is you evict the person. It's improper to trespass on private property, and libertarians believe in private property. So the mother has a right to evict. Now, here's where the compromise comes in. At today's medical technology, and it'll change as we develop, for the first 6 months, evictionism is the same as abortion. Namely, the baby will die if you evict the baby. On the other hand, the compromise, in the last trimester, if you evict gently, the baby is viable outside the womb, and now you are on the pro-life side. So it's really a principled compromise. So much for rape. Happily, very few babies are the product of rape. Although, if I can prove evictionism is true in any one case, better than pro-life and pro-choice, I think I've made a contribution. But now let's take the more normal case of abortion, which is voluntary sexual intercourse, or even when a condom is used, but it breaks or it's not perfect. Now, the argument from the pro-life people is, well, the woman had an intercourse, even if she had a preventative for a pregnancy. She knows that it's not perfect. So in effect, she invited the baby into her womb, into her person, into her property, and now she has some sort of obligations. It's to put this in libertarian view, she had a contract with the baby, and I say that's wrong, because all she did was engage in voluntary sexual intercourse. And remember, we said that the baby doesn't start being a human being until the sperm hits the egg. Sperm hits the egg. But at the time of intercourse, it takes a while for the sperm to get up the fallopian tubes or whatever it is to get to the egg. So you can't have a contract with a non-existing person, and the person doesn't exist yet. And even if the person exists, you can't have a contract with underage people. And the fetus is an underage person. So I rest my case. I think that the argument is that the woman has a right to evict but not kill. And the pro-choice people say she has a right to evict and to kill. The pro-life people say she doesn't have a right to evict or to kill. So I think that it really is what do you call it, a principled compromise. I rest my case. Your turn, Wade.
Yeah, well, that's excellent. By the way, I was delighted to hear that you believe life begins when the egg is fertilized. We would call that conception, and that is often ridiculed. So it was refreshing to hear that. Um, I realize that you are a Hebrew, a Jew, but the Hebrew scriptures probably don't mean as much to you as they do to me, and that's fine. So, in my discussion with you, rather than going to the Hebrew scriptures or even the New Testament scriptures, like I could or the Talmud does, for example, Genesis 38, when Onan is having intercourse with his sister-in-law, which according to the Jewish law, he was to do because she was childless and her husband, his brother, had died. Well, he pulls out of the vagina and wasted his sperm on her stomach. And of course, the Talmudists have written about this for centuries, talking about how big of a crime against God that was, and that's why Onan died. And Lee, it's interesting. Most Christians don't realize that even among the Jews, masturbation is a far more criminal conduct against the Lord than Christians see it to be. But we'll set that aside. And what I'd like to do is ask you some questions, just 4 or 5 or 6, from a libertarian perspective, and maybe a brief answer and then a follow-up on that, because obviously you're an intellectual scholar, you're a legendary libertarian, and my questions will come at you from libertarian philosophy. So the first one would be this. Doesn't true libertarianism require agency of the trespasser? And my question would be, what action then does the baby in the womb take to trespass? And if none, isn't responsibility then on the one who accepted the sperm into her body?
That's a very good question, a very good objection, and I think a very important one, and I thank you for it. And to just repeat it and make sure we're on the same wavelength, doesn't a trespasser have to be responsible? Doesn't he have to have some agency? Doesn't he have to have some sort of guilt? And I say no. Right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drug Lee. Don't worry, Lee. I'm just hypothetical. I'm going to drug Lee. He's totally unconscious. I'm going to grab him and I'm going to put him in your house, Wade. He's innocent, totally innocent. I mean, he didn't do a thing. And I think he's a trespasser. Now, I'm guilty, but I'm not a trespasser. I just stuck him in your house and then I walked away. So the trespasser is Lee, not me. Now, I'm the bad guy. Lee is innocent, just like the rapist is the bad guy. The child of the rapist is totally innocent, has no agency whatsoever. But what else are we going to call him but a trespasser? Because he's inside of somebody else's property where he has no right to be, just as Lee is now inside your house and he has no right to be. So I reject the notion that a trespasser has to have agency. I don't think it's true. I think you can be an innocent trespasser.
A quick follow-up, and I see the logic, but in your answer, you only spoke of the rapist. Lee is my friend, and he's drugged. I don't know you've drugged him. And you ask me if I will receive him into my home. And I voluntarily say, yes, of course. And I'm receiving Lee in. I think the struggle that I'm having, even from a libertarian perspective, is that rape to me is a completely different category than a woman welcoming the male into her body and receiving an innocent person, like you say, who has done nothing to even ask to be present. So the rape illustration, and by the way, I have been with women who've been raped and have become pregnant. And that was part of my pastoral ministry. So, frankly, your libertarian views on this, I think, could have brought great comfort to the one who had been raped, evictionism. So I'm not disputing them. However, I can also tell stories like of Beethoven, whose paternal ancestry was a product of a rape. And now some of the greatest music that we listen to comes from Beethoven. So I get it. So my second question, though, is this. Excluding rape, if two people voluntarily perform the one act that causes conception and a baby, I repeat again, how can the baby be a trespasser rather than a foreseeable result in the minds of the people who have had sex?
Before I answer that question, I'm a professor. I'm never supposed to answer questions. I'm supposed to prevaricate. Otherwise, they'll kick me out. The question I put to you, Wade, is do you agree with me on evictionism with regard to rape?
I'm going to be as transparent and honest as I can. No, but my disagreement is theological, not libertarian. Because I believe in a sovereign God and that there are no accidents, my approach would be similar to yours, to argue that there is human life in the womb and that if one will trust God, and then I'll tell the story of Beethoven, the good that can come may surprise you. However, I say that not to ridicule your position, because I hear the libertarian logic, and I'm being as transparent as I can. I don't agree, but you've tracked me on libertarianism, and I want to talk to you about libertarianism, and I don't want to answer theologically. Does that make sense?
No, I hear you. So if I can put words in your mouth, what you're saying is, qua libertarian, I'm correct. Evictionism is the right answer to rape.
Correct.
Good. But you have other considerations besides
Correct.
libertarianism, and I respect that.
No, and I respect you. And what I'm trying to do gently, Professor, and I mean, you're brilliant, is to ask you if you could draw a distinction between rape and consensual sex with a foreseeable child, meaning anyone should expect that is conscious and has intellect that sex will produce a child. That's the foresee, which is part of the libertarian causality argument. So what you said in the beginning was, and this is where I struggled just a tad. You said if I can prove evictionism is a principled decision in rape, then it can be a principled decision or compromise in voluntary causation. And that's my struggle, how a libertarian does not see the difference between rape and voluntary sex.
Well, obviously, I see the difference. In one case, the raper should go to jail. In the other case, the father should not go to jail. So there's that difference. So I'm glad that you agree with me, qua libertarian, if I can induct you as a libertarian. You agree with me insofar as libertarianism is concerned, eviction is the proper answer for rape. So all we now have to discuss is voluntary sexual intercourse, because we've
Correct.
agreed on the rape case. Okay.
By the
So
way, we haven't agreed. We've agreed on the libertarian principle, but I have a theological principle that supersedes my libertarianism.
right,
Okay?
but qua libertarian, you agree that eviction is
Yes,
the right
thank you.
libertarian answer to
Thank
rape.
you. Thank you for the qualification. Yes.
Right. Okay. So we're on the same wavelength. Okay. Now let's talk just about voluntary sexual intercourse. First of all, I don't think it's true that it's always foreseen. I'm now going back to when we were in the caves or in the trees or wherever we were, and we were half ape or whatever we were a million years ago. And I imagine that people had intercourse and didn't know where babies came from. Well, so it's not true that every voluntary sexual intercourse is an invitation to a baby. Because I've now given cases, which I presume are correct, that at some time people didn't know that. Or you might get a very unsophisticated 12-year-old boy and a 12-year-old girl, and somehow they had sex, and they didn't realize that that's where babies came from. They thought it came from the stork, you know. So that claim is not true. But now let's take the case. I'm trying to whittle away at you. So now let's take the much more reasonable case of an adult people that know darn well where babies come from, and it's not from Storkovia, you know, from the stork. It comes from voluntary sexual intercourse. Well, now the way the libertarian sees it is there a contract violation? Now, I will admit one thing. A couple is infertile, and they hire a host mother, and they take the sperm from the husband and they put it into the host mother. And now the host mother has been paid $50,000 or whatever. And boy, oh boy, she may not evict anybody until 9 months. Then she can evict all she wants. Namely, she can have a proper birth. So we agree on that. But that's based on the contract. Namely, she had a contract with the couple and she's obligated. But now let's forget about that, because I imagine we agree on that. But now let's get back to the husband and the wife, or the man and the woman who have a sexual intercourse, and now the baby comes. The way the libertarian looks at it, and I'm trying to get you qua libertarian, the way the libertarian looks at it, is there a contract? Because if there's a contract and there's a violation of the contract, that means there's some sort of fraud. And we libertarians are against fraud. Well, who was the contract with? With the baby? But the baby didn't exist at the time of intercourse. So you can't have a contract with a non-existent person. And by the way, I forgot, when I drugged Lee and put him in your house, I was assuming he wasn't your friend. Obviously, if I drugged him and put him in there, you wouldn't consider him a trespasser. But if there were two strange people, but you know, let's forget about that. The point that I want to make now is the way the libertarian looks at it, and we're being libertarian qua libertarian, was there a contract violation? Well, I say there was no contract. Maybe there was a contract between the husband and the wife, that they maybe he paid her to have his baby. I don't know. And
Mhm.
in that case, she'd better live up to it. I mean, if the man paid the woman to have his baby,
Mhm.
eviction is out the window.
Mhm.
Now there's a contract, and she's got to go for 9 months, or as long as she can. Another issue is a lot of people, a lot of pro-choice people, and I'm not sure if it's you. They say, except if the woman's life is in danger. A
Mhm.
lot of pro-life people say that. Namely, then you can have an abortion. I'm talking about pro-life people. Now, I don't know
Mhm.
if that's true for you, but in my view, why, what's so great about the woman if it's not a trespass? Why shouldn't we flip a coin? In other words, sometimes the woman will die, but her body will be kept alive artificially, and the baby can, like if she dies at 8 months, and
Mhm.
the baby can be kept going by keeping her alive artificially,
Mhm.
namely keeping her heartbeat and all that. I mean, I sense a contradiction in the pro-life position where they make an exception for the mother's life. What's so great about the mother, unless there's a trespasser? Now, if there's a trespasser, then of course we have to favor the mother. But the point is, there's no contract. When
Mhm.
we're excluding the case where there's a host mother, we're excluding the case where the husband paid the wife to have his baby, or the man paid the woman to have a baby. There can't be a contract with the baby. Now,
Mhm.
even if there was a contract with the baby, not a contract, even if there was an invitation, I invite you to my house for dinner, and at around 10 p.m., I start hinting, I got to get up early tomorrow, and you say, no, I'm staying for 9 months. Just because you invite somebody, and I'm not stipulating that there was an invitation, because you can't have an invitation, you have to have an invitor and an invitee. And at the time of sexual intercourse, there was a possible inviter, but there was no invitee to invite. But overcome that or ignore that. Just because I invite you doesn't mean that I have to keep you for 9 months. So that would be my answer to the case of voluntary sexual intercourse.
Okay, I hear you. So I'll follow up. And I still like your analogy of Lee being drugged. And you wanted me to think about strangers, but that's more like rape. Two friends come together for sexual intercourse. That's like um, you, my friend, without me knowing you drugged Lee. You bring him and drop him off. He's incapacitated. He's in my house. Now, yours, I didn't invite Lee to come. I didn't have an invitation for him to show up at 6 o'clock. He showed up, and he's a human being. And someone might say, yeah, but he's your friend. And the mother doesn't see the uninvitee in her womb as a friend. I get that. Here's what's interesting. We sponsor a pregnancy center, and I have friends who live there. And one of the things that we do, we're very gentle. We talk with the young ladies who are pregnant, and it's very difficult. We're very sincere with them, compassionate, and they make their own decisions. But it's amazing how when you take a sonogram and a picture, and they see that picture, it's like you see it spread on their face. This is a human being in my house. And so this is my follow-up question. Um, I know that a libertarian desires to avoid death, even when it's an intentional trespasser. So, how can um, evictionism before 6 months not be killing a human being? And if that's the case, even though I understand the concept of trespassing and evictionism and so on, I think your analogy of Lee being dropped off in my home and the friendship causes me to care for this innocent trespasser until he is viable. And then at viability, evictionism makes perfect sense to me because the woman knows she can give the human being up for adoption. But before then, Lee, my question simply is, how is that not killing?
Oh, it is killing. It most certainly is killing. I mean, I can't object it. I can't object to that. I think you're absolutely right. It is killing. And I say, as a libertarian, that with a trespasser, if you have a rubber bullet and a lead bullet, and they equally will stop the trespasser, you are obligated to use the rubber bullet. You have to evict in the gentlest manner possible because it's a human life and all life is precious. Even Stalin and Hitler are alive, and there's some preciousness to them. I mean, we're no big fans of them, but all human life is precious. And by the way, here's an answer to a question you haven't asked. If I had to choose between pro-life and pro-choice, and I couldn't be an evictionist, I'd choose pro-life
Yeah, I
because
believe that.
I favor life.
Right.
And furthermore, medical technology is with us. Right now, it's 6 months, 3 months. Soon it'll be 5 months, 4 months. Eventually, you take that fertilized egg and you stick it into a super duper test tube, and the baby will be fine. And in that case, evictionism will evolve into pro-lifeism. So at
Right.
bottom, I'm a pro-lifer. But right now, we don't have that medical technology.
Hmm.
So I think I'm an evictionist, not a pro-lifer. But I agree with you that it is killing, but it is justified to kill in self-defense. I'm now going to come running at you. I've got a knife, and I'm going to kill you because you disagree with me. I'm going to kill you. Well, it'd be nice if you were a pacifist and let me kill you, but you don't have to. You have every right to shoot me. I mean, there's a question, well, how far am I away from you? And am I really serious? And is this a play or a movie? And
Hmm.
but forget about that. If I'm really going to kill you, and here's my knife, it's a pen, so don't worry.
Hmm.
You have a right to shoot me. There's nothing in libertarianism or in common sense that
Hmm.
says that life is so precious that you can never kill somebody. Well, you can kill someone in self-defense, and
Right.
this woman is now. Got a trespasser in her. Again, we're thinking libertarianism. We're putting our libertarian hats on.
Hmm.
That
Hmm.
that libertarian that fetus is aggressing against her. It's occupying her space, and she
Hmm.
has a right to kill it. And I'm not going to bandy words and say, "Well, no, it's not really killing." And it's a weakness on my part because I don't like being pushed into the corner like you're pushing me.
I
It's
don't mean to,
no,
Doc.
no, no, no.
Yeah.
I admire you for pushing me. We're
Yeah.
supposed to push each other around in a gentle way, in an
Yeah.
intellectual way. And I think that was a good push against me, a good criticism that you've got me to admit that you are killing that baby, not murdering, because murder is unjustified killing, but you're killing that baby, and it's a tragedy. Uh,
Well,
and
let me ask you this,
and I hate
Doc.
these.
Yeah, well, thank you for your humility. I really appreciate that. I think the thing that I keep tripping up on is the intentional um, agency responsibility of someone coming after me with a knife. And by the way, I've experienced that. Someone intentionally trespassing in my home, and I carry, a Glock 9 millimeter. I have no problem pulling a Glock 9 millimeter out and shooting the trespasser that wishes to cause harm. The struggle that I have is the innocence of the trespasser and the killing because I don't see harm coming to the mother. Now, if we jump to the life of the mother, abortion is granted by many Christians. Guess what, Doc? I don't say that. And the reason is you fight for both. And as you fight for both, one or the other may die. And I've got some great stories of a doctor who said, we're not going to kill the baby. We're going to fight for the lives of both. So, in summary, here's what I would say. And then, Lee, I know in terms of time, I really have enjoyed this because I understand where Dr. Block is coming from. Here's what I'm saying, Dr. Block, and I want you to respond to me and pick apart
Walter,
what I'm
let
saying.
me interrupt you. Walter.
Okay, Walter. Well, that's genuine respect for you because I've read your writings on this, and I frankly was a little taken aback to read that you believed human life begins when the egg is fertilized. And I just wanted to confirm that. You confirmed that right off the bat. So here's my struggle, my position. Property rights, which are huge in libertarianism, include the right to exclude or evict, but not the right to exclude or evict by a method that kills an innocent rights bearer whose dependency you voluntarily caused. That's my struggle.
Let
Can
me
I
try to
chime in?
push back. Let me try to push back at you now.
Okay.
The woman has a baby, and the baby is 2 months old. And for some reason, the baby will kill the mother if the baby stays in. Do you then favor abortion?
I favor the doctor seeking to save both
No,
lives.
no, no. We stipulate that it's one or the other. The baby will kill the mother if the baby stays inside. The mother's life is at risk through no fault of the baby. It's just that she's allergic to the baby or who knows why. But we stipulate that both can't live. And if the only way to save the mother's life is to evict that baby, and it's 2 months, so the baby will die, do you favor eviction on that in that
Oh,
case?
absolutely. But Dr. Block, as you have pointed out, Walter, excuse me, as you have pointed out, in the delivery of that baby, what I mean is every effort will be made to save that baby's life. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely, that goes without saying. But the question is, you see, you're pushing me into a corner. I'm admitting that I'm killing a baby, and I want to return the favor. And you've just returned the favor. You said, I think, that if it's one or the other, and you can't say both, the baby's got to go. Well, if the baby's got to go, namely she can evict at 2 months, namely there'll be an abortion because the baby will die. Well, but why? You see, if you admit that, then you have to admit that the baby's a trespasser. Because if you don't admit the baby's a trespasser, why save the mother? It's two lives. Look, if
Yeah,
you and I are now reaching for a stick and it'll keep only one of us alive, the right answer, the right libertarian answer is who is the owner of the stick that will only keep one of us alive in the water?
I
Well,
understand that.
the mother is the owner of the stick. The mother is the owner of the body. The baby is a trespasser. So I want to push you around and get you to admit that in the case of voluntary intercourse, the baby is a trespasser.
Okay, yes. And Lee, I know you want to jump in here, but let me respond because Walter is pushing me. I think it goes to the heart of the property owner. For example, if you drop drugged Lee off at my house, I didn't invite him, but I've welcomed him because he's an innocent who can do nothing for himself. Then our house catches on fire. Who am I going to work to save first? And the answer is my family. But then, if I can't get back to save the innocent trespasser, Lee may die. But my heart is to always do what's best for all. And so, what I've seen is it's not the killing of the baby. I think the tone would be, Doc, we're going to deliver, we're going to evict. Stronger word. But, Doc, in all of your power and in all of the technology, do all you can to save the baby's life. That's the difference in my mind.
I just wanted to say one more thing before Lee jumps in. They now have rules that if you stand out of an abortion center and pray, they will arrest you.
I'm familiar with that.
I'm sure you are. That's an abomination. I
I
mean,
agree with
that's
you,
just
Walter. I
vicious
agree
and
with you.
inhumane, and
Yeah,
people who do that are criminals for
yeah, I'm
putting
with
people
you.
in jail who are praying near an
Yeah,
abortion center. They're not preventing women from
correct.
going to the abortion center. They're just
Yeah.
praying or showing
Uh,
pictures
yeah.
of babies or whatever it is. So we certainly agree on that.
Walter, we're true libertarians on that. Lee, you've been awful quiet, Lee.
Well, you did a wonderful job. This is a beautiful thing, and I'm going to make sure many Southern Baptists see this, Wade, because Wade has got a reputation of being, I don't know, a guy that goes against the grain in some of the Southern Baptist stuff, but he's handled this situation really well. Now, something I want to bring up, first of all, I fully agree with Walter. That's an abomination. The whole reason why I've had you on, I think this is our 17th time you've been on my show, is because I believe in free speech. I reject violently any attempt to suppress freedom of speech, even of views that I disagree with. Okay. Now, I want to say this, that never before in American history has the pro life movement been stronger. There are people that would say, Walter, I need to give you some information. And so the kids would say, give you the 411, that the kind of view that has been going on for many, many years, that life begins at conception and we're against abortion, except for the case of rape and incest, is viewed by many pro-life people as a very weak argument. And the issue is both lives, as Wade has said, are important, creating the image of God. And they're both human beings. And I agree with your terminology that it's not a fetus or it's not an it. I mean, it's a fetus, but it's not an it. It's a he or a she. At the moment of the fertilization, it becomes a human being. Okay, loved by God. Now, this is just I'm taking some notes here, doing my best, William F. Buckley. Um, First of all, as much as I love you and Ayn Rand, my authority is not libertarianism. I love you to death, and I always will. Okay, I love Ayn Rand. I eat the meat, spit out the bones. I love the Fountainhead. I love, Atlas Shrugged and all of that stuff. But I reject her atheism, and I reject that libertarianism is the authority. As a Christian, a Reformed Christian, I believe in the Protestant Reformation, and I'll do my best Greg Bonson, um, very famous apologist in the Christian faith, that our final authority is the Bible alone. And the Bible says the life begins at conception and that we're fearfully and wonderfully made. I love libertarianism, but I have a higher authority, and it's the Word of God and an Almighty God that inspired it. And I fear Him. And I want all of us, including you, Walter, to know this living God through Jesus Christ. So what He says and what God says supersedes the libertarian worldview, which has good points. And I believe in a lot of the points. I mean, First Amendment, constitutionalism, liberty, individual. But I think we go too far. I have a friend who said, I was a libertarian in college, but I saw it as being immoral. This guy said, because, and this is why I rejected, what's the guy, Gary, the guy that ran for president in 2016, the New Mexico governor that became, it slips my mind.
Johnson,
Yeah, Gary
Gary
Johnson.
Johnson.
I'm a Ron Paul, Rand Paul type kind of libertarian. Ron Paul, as a baby doctor, delivered 4,000 babies, and he strongly believed in the libertarian worldview, but he believed in the living God. So I'm going to reject the libertarian worldview on this. If there is a worldview that it would say that evictionism should be no. Secondly, I would say this, that we have dueling authorities here. Your authority is this libertarian worldview. My authority is the historic Christian worldview, Christian faith, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And I'm going to go with Jesus every time, 10 out of 10 times. No debate on this. Okay. And also, I reject your premise. I think it's called equivocation. You're the philosopher, is to take a definition, I think, and redefine it. I would disagree with the trespasser. I think, as I've done debate coaching, I've debated in high school. I mean, I have judged debates in high school high school debate, and I was a chairman of a debate society. I think the strongest point that Wade has made is the trespasser argument pushback on you, because under no circumstance do I think that I'm a trespasser. If I've been drugged and brought into Wade's home, I was against my will, but it's not the same thing. I think I would disagree adamantly that that person is a trespasser in the same level that you're trying to argue for the baby that should be evicted. I think ultimately two last things I want to say here about the issue of moral responsibility of the mother. Okay, we live in a time of radical individualism, okay, where anything goes, just do as you want. I do believe that a mother who has been impregnated, irrespective of how they've been impregnated, has a moral responsibility to bring that baby to term based on the authority of Scripture. That is a baby created in the image of God, as Wade said. Sovereign God allowed this to come to pass. This is a human being, and under no circumstance should this baby be murdered or put to death for any reason. Now, let me give me a chance. And just like a mother should not take heroin, okay, while she's pregnant, she should not kill that baby. And last thing I'll say, Wade and Walter, okay, in the law, it seems like we have a contradiction here in American jurisprudence, and that if a man kills a pregnant woman, he gets double homicide, okay, even if it's a 1-day-old baby in a mother's womb. That's a contradiction in the terms of the law. So I would say this to you. My last word is this. I believe the life begins at conception. I reject the evictionist worldview, not because I have any animate. I love you. You're a legend, Walter. But my authority is Jesus Christ, the authority of Scripture, and I'm going to do everything in my power to bring that baby to term. And you know what? It's a horrible situation when women are raped and babies are product of all of that. But like Wade said, that Beethoven came out of that situation. And I would just say this, truly last thing, that I think there's very few instances where women are getting impregnated by rape in comparison overall. I think statistically that would prove that, right? But ultimately, I would just say this, in looking at both of them, of your views, you're both very highly sophisticated men, but I'm going to go with Wade just because I believe that we're creating the image of God and that we got to bring that into the argument. And I love you, Walter. And don't hate me. Don't, as the kids say, don't ghost me because I challenged you, my friend. But anyways, Wade, why don't you say something and give Walter the last
Yeah,
word?
absolutely. I want Walter to have the last
Okay,
word.
I want to say two things. The two chief libertarians, as far as I'm concerned, are Ron Paul and Murray Rothbard.
Yeah.
And I don't think any libertarian or anyone else would disagree. Murray is pro-choice, totally pro-choice. He believes life starts with birth. Ron Paul believes life starts with a fertilized egg. You can't get too far apart than those two, and they're both libertarian leaders. And I would say, just as in the general public, it's roughly halfy, give or take. It might not be 50-50. It could be 45-55, either way. Same within the libertarian movement. And yet, nobody ever canceled anybody over that.
Correct.
Ron Paul didn't cancel Murray. Murray didn't cancel Ron. And yet there are more babies, more human lives at stake in the abortion issue than in Israel. I mean, in Israel, there are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of lives at stake. In abortion, there must be billions of lives at stake, or at least hundreds of millions. It's not even in the same category. And yet, within the libertarian movement, there's cancellation, there's excommunication for disagreement, which I'm ashamed to say is a part of the libertarian movement. The other thing I wanted to say is I think I cornered Wade into saying that if it's one or the other, if they both can't, obviously you try to say both, but if that can't be done by arguendo, for argument's sake, and the baby is a poison to the mother, well, why pick the mother's life if it's not a trespass? Otherwise, it would be equal. Sometimes you flip a coin because the mother could be kept alive. Let's stipulate, I don't know the medical, but let's suppose that the mother could be kept alive by moving the heart and the lungs and whatever, and the baby will come out okay, but the mother will die. We choose the mother. Well, why do we choose the mother? They're both human beings. There has to be a reason why we pick the mother, and the only reason can be is that one of the two is a trespasser, and the other is the owner of the premises in which the trespass occurs. So, just as Wade pushed me into saying I favor death for human beings, I pushed back, and I think Wade agreed. And most pro-lifers say, in the case of incest, we haven't discussed incest, but certainly in the case of rape, in the case of the mother's life, the mother is to be saved and not the baby. Well, why pick the mother? The only possible reason for picking the mother is that it's a trespass. So you're contradicting yourself if you say there's no trespass and we have to pick the mother. If you agree that we have to pick the mother's life, you must logically say that there is a trespass. Now, of course, the trespass is innocent. Nobody denies that. But you don't have to have agency to be a trespasser. So that would be my final. No, I have one more remark, and I really enjoyed this because we didn't yell at each other. We giggled at each other a little bit. We became more friends with each other. Okay, so we disagreed. It's a very complicated issue. So why shouldn't we be free to disagree? There's nothing wrong with disagreeing, and hopefully, thanks to Lee's show, and thanks to our participation, Wade, we are now 1 millionth closer to the truth with a capital T.
Wade,
Amen.
Amen,
Walter.
close this out, my friend. What do you got to say?
Yeah. Oh, first of all, highly enjoyed the discussion. And Lee, what an honor to have someone like Walter E. Block, humble enough to come on to talk. I mean, he's usually the one giving the lectures, and he allows himself to be questioned. That's huge. Now, I'm going to throw in closing a little kink, but Lee, don't get upset because I'm leading it all back to Jesus Christ. Okay. I think Lee has as strong a view Walter has as strong a view, like Lee, of human life of anybody I've frankly been around. Because Lee, and I'm not saying I'm right, but I'm going to throw something out. In the medical world, and my wife has her doctorate in nursing, there is what is called spontaneous abortions, where the mother does not even know she is pregnant, and her system is flushed of fertilized eggs. Sometimes the system is flushed of multiple fertilized eggs. Then one is implanted in the uterus. Now the question is, are those human beings the children of that mother, and will they meet her in eternity? Okay, I'm going to throw something out. Back in ancient days, women didn't even know that they were pregnant because their periods were sporadic. Harsh climates, hard work caused infidelity to be rampant. So the only way a woman knew that she was pregnant is when she felt movement in her womb, which is called quickening. Now, it's fascinating to me that the Apostle Paul uses the same word for quickening in the Greek language that women would use when they discovered pregnancy within their womb, when he said this in the book of Ephesians. And you who were dead in your trespasses and sins, he, the Lord, has quickened and made you alive. So, Lee, I'm not convinced that the imparter of soul, God himself, does it at conception. But I will say this, there is human life at conception, and it is our obligation to protect it at all costs. But the question is, can a scientist, when he implants a sperm in an egg in an in vitro tube and freeze it, is that a frozen human being? Or is a human being because the giver of life and breath imparts the spirit at a time of his choosing around the time of quickening. Now, having said that, Lee, I love the statement, human life begins at conception. But I want all of you to understand from a theological perspective, it's called traducianism. Man cannot replicate man. Only God creates man. And so the impartation of the Spirit is what I believe to be what makes human beings different from animals. And that's in the hands of a sovereign God. But Lee, when people hear that, they usually say, well, if I believe that, then I would kill every fetus and every implanted egg and not care about it. And I'm saying, no, 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 you're missing the point. You're missing the point. You're obligated as the host to care for that human life until viability. But when we get to heaven, I think this is a question that we ask of the Lord Jesus Christ, Lee. And as you said in the beginning, I think it's important for every human being to realize true life comes from the Creator and not from man or even science. That's what I would say.
Gentlemen, it's been a high honor to have you on my show. I want to bring up a couple things before we go. Two things that America is facing right now is one, the issue of ICE. Should ICE be abolished? We're not talking about that tonight, but I want there to be a further show. What happened in Minnesota, irrespective of where we're at on the spectrum on this whole thing, there's something happened in a nation. There was a massive turning when that second person. I mean, it's clear that there's Mr. Peretti had some anger issues when he kicked that car, but it really, really damaged ICE's reputation for both those killings that have happened. So I want to do a show, and hopefully I'll get somebody on that's very adamantly wants ICE to be abolished. I want to get somebody on there. I want to bring you guys back in a few weeks. Let's talk about another issue this year is I think the Republican Party is going to lose in a bloodbath. They are going to be destroyed. There are two elections. I've studied American history. I'm getting a PhD now in history from Liberty University. And I think two elections, 1964, when America was still reeling in the aftermath of the death of President Kennedy, and the Democrats did a massive landslide in that election. That's when Johnson beat Goldwater. But in the House, it was a massive turning to the Democrats. Then also in 1994, with Newt Gingrich, and the Republicans took back the House for the first time in 40-something years. I think it was the 50s. It was the last time they had held it. I think there is going to be a bloodbath, and that the Democrats are going to win the House by at least 25. This is my view, 25 seats. And if what that means is probably Trump might get impeached, not that he's going to get removed from office, because you have to have 2/3 majority in the Senate. We all know this. But I think he's going to be impeached again, and it's going to stop a lot of his plans. I think a lot of Republicans don't see this. It's all the handwriting is there. Here in Texas, which is really a Republican state, in a local election here, a state Senate race, a Democrat won massively in his district. There is some handwriting in the wall. I want to talk about that in the future. Go ahead. We're going to say something.
I got to get off. I just want to have the last word, and
All right, go ahead.
last word, 2 words. Thank you.
We'll talk soon, guys. All right. I want you back on soon for those things. Talk to you guys
happy
later.
Thank you,
Thank
Walter.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.